I sat at my parents' antique dining table, enduring another lecture about my frivolous lifestyle while their credit cards lay scattered between us like evidence at a trial. Really, Sarah? Mom sighed, brandishing her platinum card statement. 3 international trips this quarter? What kind of financial advisor are you? If only they knew those frivolous trips were actually global banking acquisitions. And these business expenses, Dad added, adjusting his gold Rolex, the one he'd bought to match his bank president nameplate. Meetings at 5-star hotels? Private jet rentals. We're just concerned, Mom continued, sipping her 3rd glass of expensive wine. Especially after you left that prestigious position at Morgan Stanley. I checked my phone discreetly. Another message from my acquisition team. Final paperwork for First National Bank ready for signing. Current value, $8.2 billion. You could have had your father's position by now, Mom pressed. Vice President of Regional Operations. Instead you're... What exactly are you doing? Financial consulting, I replied mildly, watching another notification pop up about the impending bank merger. Dad scoffed. Consulting? Is that what you call spending beyond your means? Your credit card bills alone are paid in full every month, I finished, just as my phone lit up with the Forbes notification. Mystery buyer set to acquire major regional banking chain. That's not the point, he insisted. As president of First National, I have a reputation to maintain. I can't have my daughter living so recklessly. My phone buzzed again. Ma'am, board meeting in 30 minutes. Final acquisition papers ready. We've decided to freeze your credit cards, Mom announced, pushing their family platinum card toward me. Until you demonstrate more financial responsibility. I had to suppress a laugh. They had no idea that in less than an hour I would technically own those cards, and the entire bank that issued them. And, Dad added with authority, I've spoken to the board about creating a position for you. Entry-level, of course. You need to learn banking from the ground up. Another message flashed. SEC filing complete. Press release scheduled for 6 p.m. Speaking of the board, I said carefully, when was your last meeting? Dad puffed up. Last quarter. We're doing excellently. Profits up 15%. I checked my watch. The Real board meeting, the one that would announce their new owner, would begin in 20 minutes. And the Richardson merger? I asked innocently, naming their biggest competitor. Failed, Dad smiled smugly. They couldn't secure the funding. First National remains independent and strong. My phone lit up again. Richardson merger integration plan approved. All subsidiaries included. About that independence, I started just as Dad's phone rang. His face paled as he listened. Emergency board meeting? Mom asked, reaching for her wine. Apparently, he stammered, there's been a development. My phone dinged with the official notification. Your acquisition of First National Bank Group, including all subsidiaries and holding companies, is now complete. Congratulations, Ms. Watson. Sarah, Dad said slowly, staring at his phone. Why is the board meeting being led by Watson Global Financial? I stood up, gathering my belongings. Because Dad, while you were planning my entry-level position, I was planning something bigger. Watson Global. Mom whispered, the name finally registering. But that's my company, I confirmed, watching their faces as realization dawned. The one you called a consulting hobby last Christmas. Dad's phone was buzzing continuously now as news of the acquisition spread through the banking world. Mom's credit card, the one they'd tried to freeze, lay forgotten on the table. The board meeting starts in 15 minutes, I said, checking my watch. Don't worry about your positions just yet. Though we will need to discuss that 15% profit calculation. The real numbers are quite different. This is impossible, Dad sputtered, frantically scrolling through his messages. Watson Global is a multi-billion-dollar financial group. They've acquired 6 banks this year alone. 7 now, I corrected, watching CNBC break the news on their living room TV. Breaking. Watson Global acquires First National Bank in surprise $8.2 billion deal. Mom's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. Sarah, what have you done? What you never thought I could, I replied as my phone displayed the latest stock surge. Built something bigger than Dad's precious corner office. Dad was now desperately calling board members, but they were all headed to my meeting. His face grew redder with each unanswered call. But the money, Mom stammered. The resources needed for something like this. Those frivolous international trips? I smiled. Banking acquisitions in Europe and Asia. The wasteful hotel meetings. Negotiations with global investors. That consulting hobby now controls 11 banks across 3 continents. Dad's phone rang, the board chairman. He put it on speaker, hands shaking. John, the chairman's voice was grave. Have you seen the news? Watson Global. They've acquired controlling interest. The CEO is on her way to the board meeting now. Actually, I interrupted, she's already here. Silence on the line as recognition set in. Sarah Watson, is your daughter. Surprise, I said dryly, watching Dad's face cycle through shades of purple. Mom reached for the credit cards they'd tried to confiscate. Darling, about freezing your accounts. You mean my bank's accounts? I raised an eyebrow. Don't worry, I'll have risk management review your credit limits. Though your recent spending does raise some red flags. The TV continued. Watson Global CEO Sarah Watson, named Financial Innovator of the Year, adds First National to her rapidly expanding banking empire. Dad slumped in his chair, his precious Rolex suddenly looking less impressive. The Richardson merger. You were behind that too. The funding they couldn't secure? I nodded. Came from my European division. I've been planning this acquisition for months, right under your nose. My phone buzzed again. The board was assembling. Time to make my entrance as their new owner rather than the reckless daughter they thought needed financial supervision. The board meeting starts in 10 minutes, I announced, gathering my coat. We'll need to discuss the creative accounting in the last quarter's reports. Dad, that golden parachute you added to your contract last month? Consider it grounded. You can't. He began. Actually, I can. And I will. I checked another message. When Mom? The country club membership you charged to the corporate account? That's being audited too. The TV switched to a file photo of me at last month's World Economic Forum. Under Sarah Watson's leadership, Watson Global has revolutionized modern banking. The lectures about financial responsibility, I continued, heading for the door. The condescending advice, the attempts to control my spending. Did you never wonder where my money actually came from? Mom called after me, her voice shaking. Sarah, please. We were just trying to help. No, I turned back one last time. You were trying to control. Now you can explain to the board how you missed your daughter building a banking empire while you were busy criticizing her lunch expenses. My car was waiting outside. Not the modest sedan they thought I drove, but a Rolls-Royce with Watson Global's logo. Time to show them what real financial success looks like. The First National Bank boardroom fell silent as I entered. 20 board members, including my father, sat frozen as their new reality sank in. The wall screens displayed Watson Global's portfolio. 11 banks, 3 continents, $50 billion in assets. Good evening, I began, taking my seat at the head of the table, Dad's former chair. Let's discuss those quarterly reports. My CFO distributed folders containing the real numbers. Not the polished versions Dad had presented, but the stark truth about First National's performance. As you can see, I continued, the 15% profit increase was optimistic. The actual figures show a 7% decline in core banking operations. Dad shifted uncomfortably, his carefully crafted narrative crumbling. The same narrative he'd used to lecture me about financial responsibility. Ms. Watson, the board chairman started, about the Richardson merger. Is proceeding as planned, I finished. Under Watson Global's umbrella, not First National's leadership. My phone lit up with breaking news. Watson Global announces immediate restructuring of First National Bank. Stock surges 40%. The executive compensation packages, I continued, pulling up more documents. Particularly interesting reading. Dad, care to explain the 3 undisclosed bonuses? His face went pale. The same face that had smirked when denying my request for startup funding 5 years ago. Sarah, he attempted, those were standard industry practices. I emphasized. Watson Global operates differently. More transparently. More ethically. My assistant entered with more reports. The SEC filing is complete. And Mrs. Watson's country club audit results are in. Mom's creative expense reports filled the screens. Designer shopping sprees categorized as client relations. Spa weekends listed as professional development. Speaking of audits, I continued, all executive privileges are suspended pending review. That includes credit cards, club memberships, and... I glanced at Dad's parking space placard, premium parking spots. The board members squirmed, no doubt wondering about their own expense reports. Effective immediately, I announced, First National will implement Watson Global's compliance protocols. The same protocols Dad called unnecessarily strict last year. My phone buzzed with another update. Watson Global CEO Sarah Watson named Banker of the Year. Revolutionary compliance system sets new industry standard. The Christmas bonus discussion, one board member ventured. Should we postpone? No need, I smiled. Those funds will be redirected to employee profit sharing. A concept this board has consistently rejected. Dad's hands clenched around his Mont Blanc pen, the one he'd bought with his last unauthorized bonus. Your positions, I continued, watching their faces, will be evaluated based on merit, not tenure or family connections. The screen switched to Watson Global's organizational chart. Several familiar names were conspicuously absent. But I'm bank president, Dad protested weakly. I corrected. Watson Global's president for this region will be announced tomorrow. Spoiler alert, it's not you. My phone displayed another headline. First National Bank transformation begins. Watson Global's ethical banking model draws praise. The merger paperwork is ready, my assistant announced, including the executive transition agreements. I slid the documents across the table. You have two options: adapt to Watson Global's standards or explore opportunities elsewhere. Though given our market share, elsewhere options are limited. Dad stared at the papers, his banking empire slipping away. The empire he'd used to belittle my ambitions. One last thing, I added, standing. Those financial responsibility lectures? Consider them relocated. From your mouth to my boardroom. 3 months later, I stood in my penthouse office overlooking the city skyline. First National's iconic building, once Dad's pride and joy, now bore the Watson Global logo. Below, workers were installing new signage on what used to be his reserved parking space. The transition reports are in, my CFO announced. First National's efficiency up 45% under new management. Employee satisfaction increased by 60%. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Darling, about my credit limit reduction. I smiled, remembering her words at that last family dinner. We're just trying to teach you financial responsibility. Ms. Watson, my assistant entered. Your father is here for his quarterly performance review. Dad walked in, no longer in his custom suits but in standard business attire. The gold Rolex was gone, replaced by a modest timepiece that matched his new middle management position. The Richardson merger integration is proceeding well, he reported stiffly. Though I still think my original approach would have cost us $40 million in unnecessary overhead, I finished, reviewing his department's numbers. Your new role suits you, Dad. Actually working with numbers instead of just bragging about them. The TV on my office wall flashed another headline. Watson Global revolutionizes banking. Sarah Watson's ethical finance model becomes industry standard. Your mother called about the country club membership, he ventured. The one she charged to corporate expenses for 10 years? I raised an eyebrow. Risk management is still reviewing that. My phone lit up with breaking news. Watson Global expands to Pacific Rim. Largest banking acquisition of the decade. The board meeting this afternoon, Dad continued hesitantly. About my department's budget. Will be decided based on performance metrics, I replied. Not family connections. Novel concept, isn't it? My assistant appeared with more reports. The Wall Street Journal interview is confirmed. They're calling you the future of banking. Dad shifted uncomfortably, no doubt remembering his words when I left Morgan Stanley. You're throwing away a real banking career for some startup fantasy. Oh, and Dad, I added, checking another notification. The executive dining room is being converted to employee workspace. You'll need to use the regular cafeteria from now on. His face flushed. The same face that had dismissed my business plan as naive 5 years ago. The annual banking conference, he started, will be hosted by Watson Global this year, I confirmed. You'll receive the standard employee invitation. Though the VIP section you used to frequent is no longer available to your pay grade. My phone displayed another headline, Sarah Watson's rise to banking prominence. From rejected startup to global financial powerhouse. Your sister called, he mentioned. About her loan application. Already denied, I said. Our algorithms found her creditworthiness lacking. Just like you found my business pitch lacking when I asked for startup capital. The screens in my office showed Watson Global's latest acquisition targets. Banks that used to dismiss me as John Watson's reckless daughter were now desperately seeking merger talks. The family dinner this Sunday, Dad ventured. Your mother was hoping. I'll be in Dubai, I cut him off. Finalizing our Middle East expansion. Though I'm sure you can expense a modest family meal at the regular corporate rate. Subject to standard approval processes, of course. He nodded, deflated. The banking titan who once lectured me about fiscal responsibility now needed approval for lunch expenses. One more thing, I added as he turned to leave. Those financial advice sessions you used to give me? Consider them permanently discontinued. As he left, my phone buzzed with another update. Watson Global CEO Sarah Watson named Financial Times Person of the Year, youngest recipient in history. Sometimes success isn't just about proving them wrong. It's about watching them adapt to a new reality where their financial lectures become performance reviews, their executive privileges become standard protocols, and their banking empire becomes just another acquisition in their daughter's global portfolio. Ms. Watson, my assistant called. The Harvard Business School case study about Watson Global's rise is ready for your review. I smiled, thinking of all the future bankers who would study how a reckless daughter transformed the industry that once dismissed her. Some lessons about financial responsibility work both ways.